Florida State is heavily pursuing a major five-star defensive line target in Lj McCray out of Mainland High School in Daytona Beach. Florida State and Staff were one of the first Power 5 programs to offer him, so over that time they've been able to build and establish a very good relationship. I believe he's visited Florida State more than anywhere else. Now, the main competition for him is Georgia and Florida. I think that's the three main teams. Auburn and Miami are kind of the other two schools that are involved, but I feel like they're more on the outside looking in. I definitely think this battle is between Florida, Florida State, and Georgia. I've said on here a few times that I feel like I probably lean towards Georgia right now. It seems like it's a pretty tight race all the way around, and it's fluctuated at times, at least in my opinion. At times it seemed like maybe FSU had the lead. Then there was a time where I felt like FSU was maybe running third behind Florida and Georgia. Florida's done a good job of getting him on campus a lot as well. He was in attendance when they beat Tennessee in the Swamp. Now, I don't think that was a super impressive win, but I do think it was a good environment, and it definitely helped their case with him. Now, that being said, I'm not sure there's a clear leader at this point. I still tend to lean Georgia just because of what they do with defense, and they are the reigning national champs. Now, with that being said, there's another top defensive line target for Georgia in Aiden Breland, who's announcing his commitment this Saturday. And Georgia's one of the final three schools, and I feel like there's a very solid chance that they land him. And if they do, I feel like I could kind of take them out of the race for McCray, as they're already kind of stacking up at that defensive line position. And it also doesn't hurt that Florida State is undefeated and ranked number 4 in the country right now, while UF is unranked, already has a couple of pretty rough losses, and doesn't really look too good overall. Now, the big reason I have confidence with Florida State is, for one, he took his last official visit to Florida State, and I think that was intentionally planned that way. I think the staff really wanted to get that last visit from him, and there he was in attendance last Saturday watching Florida State beat Virginia Tech. And right along with him was a lot of top recruits and Florida State commits like KJ Bolden and Luke Kromenhoek, who I'm sure had their recruiting hats on trying to get in the joining class as well. And of course, when you have a lot of very talented, highly touted guys already in the class, it becomes more and more appealing for other top targets as well. So definitely huge to have them guys kind of in his ear. And he was also in attendance for the LSU game in Orlando and watched Florida State completely dominate a top 5 LSU team. So that's always promising as well. I know that was a super electric environment, even though it wasn't in Tallahassee, so good to have him there. It's also been reported by Chad Simmons on 3 that there was a sort of, I don't want to say secret, but maybe quiet unofficial visit he took to Florida State sometime between the LSU game and the Virginia Tech game. Now, I'm going to go ahead and speculate on this. I've heard his girlfriend goes to FAMU, which is also in Tallahassee. It was reported that he took a visit there on September 23rd. Now, if I had to guess, I'd say that's when this quiet unofficial visit to Florida State also took place, since he was in Tallahassee already. Now, this other visit is pretty huge. Usually when you hear about a program and some quiet visits with recruits, that tends to favor that program, at least in my opinion. And like we said, the amount of times he's already been on campus and getting the last official visit for the Virginia Tech game is big as well. I think it's also a very good sign that despite having some serious interest with Florida and Georgia, Florida State was able to kind of stave off an early commitment. You guys may remember Florida went through that spurt in the summer where they just had a ton of guys kind of commit out of nowhere. So I think it's big for FSU that he stayed uncommitted to this point and followed through on giving us the last official visit. It's also worth mentioning what FSU has done at that defensive end position lately. The transfer success, especially with guys like Jermaine Johnson, Keir Thomas, and Jared Verse, who were all guys that weren't exactly top picks at the time of transferring. And then Florida State in one season turned Jermaine Johnson into a first-round pick. Keir Thomas goes to the NFL, and Jared Verse is obviously going to be a first-round pick, and probably could have been last year, but thankfully he decided to come back for another year. But either way, there's an obvious pattern of success and development there at that defensive end position. It's got to be a pretty big deal to a guy like Lj McCray. It also doesn't hurt that he's already in the state of Florida. Like we mentioned, he's out of Mainland High School in Daytona. So maybe staying in the state is important to him. There's quite a few reasons to feel optimistic about Florida State here, even though it is a very tight race. And honestly, LJ himself might not even know where he's going just yet. Now, all that being said, LJ McCray is probably the most important target for Florida State outside of 5-star wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. And honestly, he may even be a little bit more important. Obviously, he's not ranked quite as high, but he's a defensive lineman, and that's a position that Florida State hasn't exactly recruited to an elite level, while FSU almost has an embarrassment of riches right now at the wide receiver position. So to land a guy of his caliber at a major position of need would be huge to help bolster the roster that's fixing to lose quite a bit of talent. And then just for the perception value of adding another 5-star, 4-star, depending on where you look, kind of guy, and win a major recruiting battle from other blue blood programs like Georgia and Florida. Now, it sounds like he's going to be making his decision sometime this month, so we should hear something in the next 2 to 3 weeks max. I know his birthday is on the 18th, and he said he's going to announce sometime after that. So good news knowing that the FSU official visit will still be kind of fresh. We'll see if he takes any more unofficial visits. That's definitely possible. It'd be really nice if he made his way back to Florida State again sometime soon, as we're having a couple more home games in October. But either way, good news. Like I said, I think it's too close to call right now, but you gotta love where FSU sits getting the last official visit. There's a lot of reasons to at least be cautiously optimistic about their chances to gain his commitment within the next few weeks. It's definitely one to keep an eye on. I'll definitely keep you guys updated on any news that comes out about this, or at least when he finally does announce his decision. Fingers crossed, but let me know what you guys think. Does FSU finally flex their muscles at D-line recruiting, or do we miss out? Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and let's talk Noles.